A win and a loss to open 2025. Canucks beat the Kraken in a shootout, but plenty of concern about the health of Thatcher Demco. Lots to get to. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And a Happy New Year, everybody, as we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios in downtown Vancouver. First game of the new calendar year. I got my man Irf is back after going solo the last couple of shows, and my goodness, we've got a lot to talk about. Rink Wide brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you open an account. And the chat is already on fire, as you can imagine. So many talking points, and we always like to start off by telling you about the super chat function. If you want to make sure that your comment or your question gets through to us here on the Rink Wide desk, hit us up with a super chat. And our partner this year, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. They looked like they were home and cooled out, but they were facing the Kraken, and we all know what happened the other day. So it's never over until it's over. Short staff, they get a win without Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. The win is good. They need the points, obviously, but all of that secondary to the health and well-being of the goaltender that has battled back for the better part of 8 months to get back in the lineup just before Christmas and didn't make it through his 7th start of the season.
Yeah, just 6.5 games for Thatcher Demco before he found himself injured again. You know, you hope he's okay. We obviously haven't heard anything from the head coach, and we might get some sort of update at some point during this show from Rick Tocchet. But let's be clear here, Jeff. It is serious because it's a guy that battled back from an injury that was serious, that kept him out for so long. So anytime that something happens again, you look at it and say, okay, what's really going to happen here? But tough for the Canucks to lose him. Sucks to see Thatcher Demco out and have to leave the game the way he did. You obviously know how much it meant for him to get back into the lineup, but they ended up playing and they ended up, giving up a lead and then coming back and finally taking that one in shootout.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I watched this game not that long ago, and I sort of did, although the Canucks had a 4-1 lead on Saturday and flushed that. Here it was 3-1 midway through the third period, and the Kraken are playing better. When they were here the other day, they had lost 5 in a row. They weren't scoring much. They had scored 5 in back-to-back games. They get 3 in this one, but they couldn't get that 4th one, and the Canucks obviously they don't score 4 in the run of play, but goes into the books as a 4-3 shootout victory for the Vancouver Canucks, who are now 18-11-8 on the season, up to 43 points and above the playoff bar. Again, fell behind the other night, but Calgary lost at home to Utah earlier in the evening, and so with this win, the Vancouver Canucks go back into the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. They're 11-4-2 on the road, and as I mentioned, they do get a win without Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. They had gone 0-1-1 in the first 2 games, and you weren't quite sure how this was ultimately going to go, but they pull it out of the fire with some unexpected scoring. And I guess when we heard that Hughes and Pettersson weren't going to go on the road trip here, this is sort of how I envisioned the Vancouver Canucks winning a hockey game. Not letting a lead get away and coming back and having a goaltender and all that kind of stuff, but it was relatively low event. They had 1 shot midway through the first period. And they were going to need some surprise scoring help. And they got it in the form of Max Sasson, who gets his 2nd of the season to tie the game at 1. And Tyler Myers, who goes for a season-high 25 minutes and 47 seconds, 5 shots on goal. 1 of them finds the back of the net. 11 attempts for the big giant on the back end for the Vancouver Canucks. And his goal, 5.5 into the third period, if it makes it 3-1, and you thought, okay, a little bit of breathing room for a Canucks team that has to hustle home here, play on back-to-back nights, 3 games in 4 nights with a little bit of travel. Nashville sitting here, feet up, waiting, rested. This is far from ideal for the Vancouver Canucks to have to grind to the final buzzer of the third period, then play more in overtime, and ultimately the shootout. But, hey, a JT Miller goal stands up, the only scoring play of the shootout. That was it. Kevin Lankinen comes on in relief and gives up 2 late goals, but then closes the door and stares down Oliver Bjorkstrand. That was kind of the theme of this night. Bjorkstrand had 3 glorious chances, 1 against Demko and 2 against Lankinen, but it was Bjorkstrand, Kakko, and Matty Beniers who had scored earlier in the hockey game. And Kraken go empty-handed in the shootout, and the Vancouver Canucks, just their second shootout of the season, Game 2 against Philly. And here they are all these months later, a second skills competition. So the Canucks now 1-1 in games that require the shootout to decide things.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this game ended up going to a shootout. You know, the Vancouver Canucks take the lead, and they didn't play too bad, but as you mentioned, grind one out as the third period went on and on and on, and you just kind of felt they letting the Seattle Kraken back into the game. Great call by the head coach of the Seattle Kraken, Dan Bilesma. Pulls the goalie with about two minutes to go, gives his team some time there to be able to mount the comeback and be able to get it done. But you mentioned the shootout, Jeff. The last Canuck shootout win before today, April 8th, 2023.
I was shocked by that. I saw somebody post that. Yeah. So now I'm looking at the box score. Andrei Kuzmenko led off. He was the first shooter of that shootout, and it's against Calgary, of all teams. Maybe a little foreshadowing. Kuzmenko scores for the Canucks. The only goal of that shootout, it was Kuzmenko, and then it was Miller, and then it was Elias Pettersson, and Kuzmenko seals the deal for the Vancouver Canucks. They beat the Calgary Flames late in the 2022-23 season. So Rick Tocchet was at the helm then, but just a couple of weeks really after he had taken over. And I didn't realize they didn't win in a shootout. They only had 2 shootouts last year, didn't win either one of them. And here they had only the one. So, yeah, it'd been a while since they'd had to go down Shootout Boulevard, but the Vancouver Canucks get the job done, and they can breathe a little bit easier. Again, I just think the longer they go without Quinn Hughes, and to a lesser degree, but still important, without Elias Pettersson as well, the more the pressure is going to mount on the hockey club, the noise sort of ramping back up after a little Christmas break. And so they just needed a win here to settle things down a little bit. A Nashville team that doesn't win very often on the road, but did win in Vancouver back in November. No games are easy when you're without your best players, but the Canucks can come back home. And look, they proved that they can win without Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. Now they're probably going to have to do it without Thatcher Demco. This was slated to be a Kevin Lankinen start tomorrow. So nothing really changes on that front other than he had to play half of this hockey game. The really interesting wrinkle, I think, is so much talk about having your farm team in your backyard, and it's great when both teams are at home. The Abbotsford Canucks are in Laval, Quebec, Montreal, for a 2-game set against the Laval Rocket tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. So Artur Silovs probably gets word that Demko has left this game, wasn't going to return, and now Artie Silovs is likely to have to fly across the country on game day to be the backup, only to join the Canucks as they fly back to Montreal, where they start their road trip on Monday. So it could be a whirlwind 24 hours for Artur Silovs, but that's part of the job. You're getting the NHL dough. You do what the team tells you to do, but it's not so much about Lankinen. I think he'll be fine, but somebody's got to be the backup. And you're not going to go full game without an NHL backup when you can get one here, direct flight from Montreal. But we'll see how things shake down. I assume that Silovs is the guy that would get the call here. But we shall see. Yeah,
fly, commercial come, and then you take the charter back to Quebec with a much better mood where you get the money in your pocket there. But yeah, look, I think this one, for the Vancouver Canucks, like you mentioned, Jeff, they had to get a win just to make themselves feel good. You lose the 2 before the break, or you lose before the break, and you lose right after the break before New Year's, and then here, right after New Year's, start the year on a good note and be able to go and do that and see this one out. You had a lead going into the third period. You let that go, but it did go all the way to shootout. You didn't win it in overtime, and, getting a win does help, especially with the goalie change, and now everyone's going to be talking about that as well. So chats are going bananas right now about all sorts of things. You probably guessed it. Thatcher Demco is the biggest topic there. But David C. says, I like their fight. Canucks didn't give up. Hated seeing Demco go down. This could be the end of him. Let's hope not. Let's not go too far. Don't really think there. MD Stewart, Miller injured, ? Skating looked pretty labored out there, especially in overtime. And you and I were looking at the ice time in this one and found it quite interesting.
Yeah, this is fascinating. And I certainly want to get back to Demko because there's a lot there. But just on the topic of JT Miller, who took 2 penalties, both times the Canucks were shorthanded. He was the guy in the penalty box. Now Kraken scored on the second of his 2 penalties. So Didn't serve the full 2 minutes, but JT Miller was the low 5-on-5 ice time guy for the Vancouver Canucks in this hockey game. I repeat, JT Miller, the low 5-on-5 ice time guy for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, he ends up playing 15 minutes and 41 seconds, which still is relatively low for JT Miller, but through 3 periods, 13 minutes and 45 seconds. Played almost 2 minutes of overtime, a minute and a half on his final shift of the night. Yeah. So had enough in the tank still to score the shootout goal, but at 5-on-5, JT Miller played 10 minutes and 1 second. 10 minutes at 5-on-5 for JT Miller with no Quinn Hughes, without Elias Pettersson. It's now 11 games without scoring a goal in the run of play. Now, he does beat Philip Grubauer in the shootout, so he scored on a goaltender, something he hasn't done in forever this season. But I don't know if he's injured, but man, that grabbed my attention in a big way. You pointed it out late. Like, look at his ice time. And sure enough, to see JT Miller basically playing 15 minutes for this hockey team in a game that included overtime. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on, but not terribly invested, I didn't think, on the night. Talked about the 2 penalties. Now he had the collision with Dunn on that sequence that led to the Myers goal, and he gets an assist there. But he just doesn't look like JT Miller of old.
And I think that's the biggest thing, right? You know, coaches and guys talk about not having it or we're not going tonight. Guys didn't really have JT Miller on a lot more nights since he's come back. Hasn't really had it. Hasn't really been that JT Miller that we're used to seeing for the Vancouver Canucks. So you hope he gets whatever it is back here soon. But it looked like Rick Tocchet was just agreed with that, right? Didn't have it going. Started overtime. He wasn't even on the ice. Well, you look at the guys that started overtime. It was Suter, it was Connor Garland, and it was Tyler Myers that were on overtime to start that.
And overtime punctuated by an appearance from Vincent Desharnais. But Teddy Bluger got a shift in overtime. Nils Höglander. And I thought Hoagie had a good night, actually. I thought he was going. He had that backhand chance late in the hockey game when it was 3-2. Could have salted the victory away there. But I noticed Nils Höglander for a lot of the right reasons. So I know that the goal drought's up to 30 now, which is incredible. But there were some steps. Ray Ferraro talked about it as well.
Yep.
Kind of chipping away. But there does have to be a bottom line in all of this. Whatever the case, JT Miller and his line. And look, his line was good the other night in Calgary. I know that Besser scored on the power play 5-on-5. They didn't punctuate the score sheet, but still generated a lot. That was not the case in this hockey game. Far from it. You could sort of tell Besser was off a little bit. His second shift of the night was 1 minute and 52 seconds. Handed the puck away a couple of times. It wasn't the longest shift of the night in this hockey game, not by a long shot. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. But let's get to the 3 stars of this contest as we take a look at who was selected in the building. And after saying all that, JT Miller is the first star at Climate Pledge Arena. Somebody's like, who scored the shootout? Oh, Miller. Okay, first star.
That's literally exactly what it was.
Vince Dunn and Matty Beniers were second and third star. As selected by the Seattle media. So they don't put their names to it, but there you go. Our 3 stars, a little bit different, although Vince Dunn coming up big for the Kraken again, second time this week against the Vancouver Canucks. I just thought Connor Garland was going. Scores his 10th of the year. Breakaway, nifty forehand deke. Great play by DiGiuseppe in the neutral zone to spring Connor Garland. And Garland wound up with the slap shot and beat Philip Grubauer the other day here in Vancouver. This time goes in all the way right to the blue paint and left no doubt there. So Connor Garland was going. And we talked, I said it earlier, some unexpected offense. You don't include Connor Garland in that without Hughes and Pettersson. He's the leading scorer for the Vancouver Canucks. But he had been cold in the goal-scoring department, so he's scored in 2 of 3 now, both of the games against the Kraken this week. That's a good sign. On top of the goal, though, 4 shots, 8 attempts. And looky here, we don't see this all that often. But he kind of had the reverse Louis Eriksson. We used to laugh about Louis with the completely empty stat sheet at NHL.com, like shots, attempted shots, hits, giveaways, takeaways, block shots, face-off wins and losses. Connor Garland had something in every category except for a lost face-off. He went 1-0 in the only draw that he took. So, that's involved, right? 20 minutes and 35 seconds of ice time. They needed guys to step up, and Connor Garland broke a tie and put the Canucks in front for the first time in the hockey game. So into double digits before the midway mark of the season, on pace for 20 goals, which is kind of what you expect from him. And I don't know, just something about the Kraken. He seems to rise to the occasion. So I got Connor Garland as the first star of the hockey game. Second star, Tyler Myers. Doesn't happen all that often, but again, without Hughes, you knew that he was going to be pressed into duty. 25 minutes and 47 seconds. I don't know that, he played 23 and a half the other night in Calgary. So this is back-to-back games for Tyler Myers, up over 23 minutes. You're playing with fire. It's going to be an adventure from time to time. You know that. But the veteran doing what he can to help the hockey club, and his goal gave him the 3-1 lead. Yeah, I have no issues giving Tyler Myers a star in this hockey game.
Absolutely no issues. Let's continue our 3 stars, Jeff. But Rick Tocchet just spoke to the media in Seattle, says that it was back spasms for Thatcher Demco, could be a game or two. So not the knee, not that what everyone feared could be worst case scenario. Kevin Lankinen did an interview with Dan Murphy after the game, and he said there was some communication after the first period between Demko and Lankinen. Lankinen knew he might have had to go in, so they talked about it. I didn't think that we'd have Rick Tocchet giving a update on Thatcher Demco, but back spasms is what we have for Thatcher Demco. Could be a game or two.
All right, well, let's hope that is all it is for Thatcher Demco. Who knows? And look, they had a decision to make here before the game. Lankinen played the other night in Calgary. I thought he played all right, held the Canucks in there and gave them a chance to win. You knew that they were going to split these 2 games against Seattle and Nashville. I kind of was inclined to come back with Lankinen for this one. Like, they don't have to alternate. Like, there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason here. They've got 2 guys that they believe in and trust. You knew that Demko was going to get one of them. I don't know. If I had been making the call, I might have come right back with Lankinen. Demko gave up 5 the other day against the Kraken. Like, I might have just thrown the Kraken a different look here.
Yep.
And I know Lankinen was a former Predator. He's been there and done that. He played against them, and he lost to the Preds earlier this year, and you could have thrown a different look at Nashville. Whatever the case, what's done is done here. I'm glad to hear that it is back spasms and not more of the left knee and the popliteus. So we'll see how things go. We're not really shining the light on Vince Dunn. Should give Vince Dunn his love. He was the 3rd star of the hockey game here on Rink Wide. So there we go. Those are our 3 stars on this night. And just back to Demko, because I said I wanted to talk more about him. Brutal non-save on the Chandler Stevenson goal, 1 minute and 52 seconds in.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bad one against Matty Beniers the other day, the first Seattle goal here. That one from the outside of the face-off dot, down the wing, from distance. Decent shot, but Demko got, like 60% of it, but not enough, and it trickles through. And given the storylines of this team struggling without its leader and all of that, like, this was probably the worst case scenario in terms of starts to the hockey game, and you want to believe that Thatcher Demko is going to build on performance, because let's be honest here, that he's been back for, this was his 7th start, but he only had 2 wins. Certainly hasn't looked like his former self, and that can be, you understand that, but you want him to build to that Vezina trophy or Vezina caliber.
Yeah.
And just the individual statistics have not been particularly pretty. So a tough start here, but you can look past that when you think of the saves that he made, because the shots were 5-1 midway through the first period. Kraken had a bunch of chances. We talked about Bjorkstrand. He had a breakaway. There was another opportunity in there. Off the top of my head, I can't recall. Just a bang-bang play. Guy driving to the net, got his stick on a deflection, and Demko made himself big in the crease. The things that you want him to do. So, didn't love the start for Thatcher Demko, but one of the reasons the Canucks were able to level this game at 1 midway through the period was because they hadn't fallen behind. Like, it easily could have been 3-0 for the Kraken.
Demko definitely had to make some saves after the first one. It was ugly, but he definitely, was able to get his composure back and make some key saves. It was the one where he made himself really big, kind of flicked his arm there, and was able to do that. But good news all around as it's back spasms over, the knee issue that he has had, and that's something that's hampered him for so long. So obviously it's a big sigh of relief, I think you can say. Still think Shelovs makes his way to Vancouver here to back up. I don't think Thatcher Demko is going to be sitting on that bench tomorrow night, especially
if you're the backup, you're one knock away from having to be able to play. Yeah. And if he couldn't complete this game and a flight home, I can't imagine that the back's going to be feeling too good in the morning. So they're home for one. It's a bit of strange scheduling here. Come off the road, home for one, and then flying out on Saturday for the start of this 5-game road trip in Montreal on Monday. I would think Demco would be fine, but that's a lot of travel and not exactly. I get they fly charter and everything's first class, but still, it's just a lot of time in an airplane if you got a back issue. So we'll see where things go, but yes, I would expect that Artur Silovs has to make the mad dash from Montreal. So the final line on Demko on the night, 27 minutes and 49 seconds, stops 11 of 12, gives up the 1 goal. He's not the goaltender of record, so Lankinen does get the victory here, and Kevin Lankinen ends up stopping 13 of 15, and then 3 more in the shootout for the win. So we didn't have him in our stars because he gave up 3, but probably an honorable mention. I mean, that's a tough situation. He comes right in, Montour with a wicked one-timer, and then Bjorkstrand had another glorious opportunity, and Kevin Lankinen was up to the challenge, both of those, and you kind of knew then that he was into this hockey game. I'm sure they were into this hockey game at Greta Bar YVR, and we always talk about it here on Rink Wide Vancouver. You hear us talking about it. Hopefully you've had a chance to check it out. If you have, you know exactly what we're talking about. If you haven't, well, put it on the list. You're missing out on all the big screens, the arcade games, terrific new street food menu, weekly drink specials, Canucks Army viewing parties. You don't need us there to have a good time, but hey, we hope that you make plans to join us for the next Canucks Army viewing party. We're still working on a few details, but hopefully have an announcement soon. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. And yeah, we just played it a moment ago on the live stream. Like the play in question. Now, Demko, after the first period, had again hinted to Lankinen, hey, stay sharp and stay ready. It's an innocuous looking play. Mm-hmm. Noah Juulsen comes to the front of the net. Brandon Tanev is there, and there's a collision. And unfortunately, Demko takes the worst of it and goes down awkwardly. And then you could tell a little slow getting up as Carson Soucy comes over to talk to him. You know, in that moment when he looked slow to get up, he's staying down on that left knee, and you're thinking then that, okay, like this is a guy with a history. We all know it. So again, I hope that is all that it is back spasms, but still. You know, you're not blaming Noah Juulsen, but
no, he just looks like he took a hard fall on his back, on his ass, and it kind of, you know, he really did. That kind of does a little bit there, and maybe it did, you know, flare up something. Right?
Well, he goes down awkwardly, no question. He goes down hard
when you're not expecting to,
and that's part of it too. Hey, I mentioned Noah Juulsen. Obviously, Canucks fan base in a furor before the game when we learned that. And not because Guillaume Brisebois played, but because of the trickle down here. Guillaume Brisebois makes his season debut for the Canucks. First game in the National Hockey League since March of 2023. So we told you earlier, first shootout since April of 23. That was just weeks after Guillaume Brisebois last played in the National Hockey League. Didn't play at all last season and has been up for a little while. And Rick Tocchet had said, like, I'd like to get him in there. And sure enough, they make the decision without Quinn Hughes to take their best puck-moving defenseman out of the lineup and run with the defense core of Forbort and Myers, Soucy and Juulsen, Desharnais, and Myers and Brisebois, rather. Myers. So Forbort was on the third pair with Vincent Desharnais. And look, Brisebois made a nice defensive play, breaking up a 2-on-1 when it was already 1-0. Ends up playing 15 and a half minutes. Didn't play a lot in the third period as they started to lean on others like Tyler Myers. Full credit to Guillaume Brisebois. Like, this guy has just been grinding as part of the organization. You know, it's a little ironic that it's the Kraken that he's playing against because it was the Kraken and it was Brandon Tanev. Just a dirty, needless hit late in a preseason game out in Abbotsford. Drilled him headfirst into the end glass and concussion issues. It's been a long road to recovery for Guillaume Brisebois. So, I mean, good for him. Like, I've got all the time in the world for Guillaume Brisebois, but that's a decision to put Guillaume Brisebois in a game after you couldn't get out of your own zone, couldn't move the puck, only scored once on the power play, no 5-on-5 goals in Calgary the other night, and guys like Soucy and Juulsen struggled mightily against the Flames. I never thought for a second that Soucy was coming out, but there were a lot of people in this market that thought, all right, like, it's pretty clear that Noah Juulsen has, reached his limit here. Like, you just can't play him 20 minutes a night. So, Anyways, they made the call, and it was Brisebois in and Brandstrom out.
Yeah, interesting call when I heard it. And I was talking to you about it, before the game, and it was one of those where you look at it and say, okay, without Hughes, Brandstrom is their best puck-moving defenseman. He was on power play 1, so the trickle-down effect there was Tyler Myers now gets elevated to quarterback power play 1, Susie on power play 2. But yeah, I mean, they won the game, so in the end, I guess we kind of have to look at it and say, okay, well, they won. It might have been the right decision, but you go into, Friday night, tomorrow night against the Nashville Predators, what's the decision going to be? Are you going to roll with the same lineup, or is Erik Brandstrom come back in, and does someone else come out instead? Is it going to be Juleson? And I think that's an easy move to make if you're Rick Tocchet, but the head coach definitely likes to stick with a winning lineup when his team does play well.
Gordon McDowell says Desharnais didn't yeet the puck into the middle of the ice for a big turnover in overtime. Therefore, he should be a star of the game. I was surprised as anybody.
So was he.
That big 73 out there lugging the puck.
You and I were surprised. You were surprised.
No, I was. I mean, obviously, Quinn Hughes, if it goes 5 minutes, generally plays 3 of the overtime, and then there's a shift or 2 for others. But we talked about the fact that a slightly different approach to overtime. Didn't start JT Miller. We sort of cataloged Miller's night, so I wasn't surprised that it was Garland and Pius Suter. But then to see some of the others that were out there in overtime, DeBrusk got the puck in deep and then in front of the net, and Teddy Blueger just couldn't get his stick on it. And then the Kraken turned it the other way, and another opportunity for Bjorkstrand in OT. So officially only 1 shot on goal each way in overtime, the final shots in the hockey game. 27-22, Canucks get a win, but another night, 22 shots on goal through 65 minutes of hockey. And I know they scored 3 times, but it is wild. Like, this just isn't, it's not getting any better. The shot totals are getting worse as they go here, and I guess understandable without Quinn Hughes. But even when Quinn was in the lineup, they still were struggling to generate a lot of shots. And, when they had 1 midway through the first period, I thought, are we going to see another sort of repeat of the Boston game where they had 15 shots for the night? Ultimately, they surpassed that total. But, 21 in regulation time, and then 1 more in OT. So 22 on the night for the Vancouver Canucks.
5 of them from Tyler Myers.
Yeah.
Like 11 attempts, 5 of them from him, Connor
Garland. So there's almost half of the shots on goal for the Vancouver Canucks.
And it's interesting because we talked about it, you and I, before we did the show. Rick Tocchet at the end of last season said, it's on him to generate more chances and be able to find these things and do different ways to get more pucks to the net, generate more scoring chances. Well, they went on the offseason and signed Forbort and Desharnais. So that was one thing that this management group did. But in the end, is it systems? Are they trying to do too much when they enter the offensive zone? Like, they don't even shoot the puck. They barely even pass the puck around. And I know they scored 3 goals, and the shootout one, it's not going to count as a shot, but it still went in, JT Miller. But you play better teams that don't give up much, that don't give up 20-something shots a game, and you're only averaging that few. What's going to happen?
Well, they're going to see those good teams starts on this road
the
trip.
Schedule coming up? Woo.
Washington, Carolina, Toronto back-to-back, and then Winnipeg at the tail end of the trip. But it doesn't end there. They come back home. L.A., Edmonton. They have to go to Edmonton. Washington here. Going to see Ovi twice this month, so he's not going to get to the record quite, but we'll see where he stands the 2 times that the Vancouver Canucks face the Washington Capitals. Hey, we got a super chat.
I saw that.
We got a super chat, and same guy as the other night, going with the screen name JT Miller. I doubt that it's actually JT, grab his phone in the locker room and hitting us up. Hey, more power to him if he's watching Rink Wide right after the game.
I guarantee you he's not, but it's okay.
I'm thinking it's probably not JT Miller, but he says support BC mental health and sign Lankinen. And now we can start to talk about that because on a 1-year deal as a free agent, had to wait until the new year. Now, did I wake up on Jan 1 thinking, today's the day they're going to sign Lankinen? No. But he is eligible now to sign a contract, and we'll see where it goes. Obviously, Demco situation, I know you're making the money hands there. Patrick Alvin in his Q&A with Ian McIntyre last week said, hey, there's a way that you could have both Demco and Lankinen. You saw what Mackenzie Blackwood signed for, 5.25 over 5 years. I don't know if Lankinen can get there. I certainly don't know that he can get there from the Vancouver Canucks, but he's due for a massive raise, and coming off the bench and guiding them to another win. Just every win's a good win for Kevin Lankinen on a 1-year contract. And
you know what I always say about guys in contract seasons, right? They play their best and they go get their money. Like, I guess we can kind of start to have this discussion really now, because what does something like this look like? If you sign Lankinen to a 2 or 3 year deal, he probably wants term, right? He's 29 now, I think. He's probably going to want at least a 3 or 4 year deal. Toro in our YouTube chat says $3.5 million times 4 years. But then the bigger question there is, what happens with Thatcher Demco? Right? Like that's the ultimate question. You can give Lankinen, everyone's saying pay Lankinen, paying Lankinen, paying Lankinen. What are you going to do with Thatcher Demco?
Right. And just to sort of set the parameters here, Thatcher Demco has 1 year left beyond this one at $5 million, which just felt like one of the great bargain contracts in the National Hockey League as he was ascending the ranks and being a runner-up to Connor Hellebuck as the Vezina finalist last year. And then the injuries. And unfortunately, there have been too many injuries. I'm sure for Thatcher's liking and probably for the organization's as well. Injuries are part of his story. Now, you hope that with all the work that he put in with the knee injury in the offseason and through the start of the year and getting back there just before Christmas, that all that was behind him.
Yeah.
Again, this sounds like it's something different, and we'll hope that that's all it is. But, how many miles are on that body? How much do you want to commit to a guy that has trouble staying healthy now at this stage of his career? And when he's on, he has shown he's among the best in the business. But I think that absolutely there would be some hesitation on the part of the Vancouver Canucks to commit not just big money, but long term. And you've seen what's happening around the National Hockey League. Demko's not at the Igor Shesterkin level, but you see what Swayman and Ottinger and Linus Ullmark, those guys are all in that $8+ million range. And I'm sure Thatcher Demco believes that if he can stay healthy and get on a run, that absolutely, that's his ballpark, that's his neighborhood. I just don't know if the Canucks want to go. Goaltending such voodoo, you see it. Kevin Lankinen comes out of nowhere and delivers the kind of performance he has through a half a season here. It shows you it's all about opportunities, time, and place. And if you're Lankinen, I guess you have to be careful too. How many teams at any one point? There's always a couple of teams that need goaltending, but really, how wide is the field of potential suitors that could give Lankinen what he wants?
Not really many, because you look at where Lankinen signed and when he signed for this season.
Yep.
Right? He got his opportunity, and now he's going to hope that he can cash in on his opportunity here. I think that's what you have to look at if you're Kevin Lankinen and you're his camp. You say, okay, well, Thatcher Demco, we don't really know what his health status is going to be for the foreseeable future. Is he going to be the goaltender in the future here? Is Kevin Lankinen willing to be a backup to a guy that's maybe a starter, or it's like a 1A, 1B situation where they split starts? But you're right about Thatcher Demco, Jeff. 8.5. The Canucks aren't going to give Thatcher Demco more than 4 years. I don't think that is a question, and I don't think that they should either. Just based on recency and what we see in it as well. But yeah, it's interesting. We got another super chat in here from Blue Line Bar Down. 4.5 to 5.5 for Lankinen. That's what he says.
I think he says Grok.
Grok says 4.5 to 5.5. I don't know what Grok is.
It's Twitter's AI. It's so this is taking all the information that's out there and available and compiling it all, coming up with 4.5 to 5.5 for
Kids
Lankinen
today.
Look, Kevin Lankinen's going to get paid. He's going to get a massive raise on basically league minimum. But, he has found a pretty good spot for him. He's made the most of this opportunity. It seems like he likes it in Vancouver. There's just a ton of factors at play. And so the fact that the Canucks can sign him right now doesn't mean that they're going to.
No.
But that window is now open for guys on 1-year contracts. So a player like Eric Brandstrom in the same boat, that the two sides, not only could they talk, but guys are eligible to sign contract extensions now. So we'll see where it goes. And if you're Lankinen, I think just head down, keep doing what you're doing, which has been terrific work. And this is the second time this season that the Vancouver Canucks have made a goaltending change in game. The first one was Lankinen getting the hook after he gave up 7 against the Oilers back in early November. guess it was Silovs that came in, and a little bit of relief duty, some mop-up work there. And so this is second time. That was Rick Tocchet getting the hook out, obviously. This was a little bit different. This was sort of like Cam Talbot. Remember the game in Detroit? Cam Talbot, after the Red Wings, same thing, after the Red Wings scored, and Talbot took himself out of that game, and here it was the Canucks that scored right after the Connor Garland goal was when Thatcher Demco said, see you later, I am out of here. And Lankinen came on in relief and, again, delivers a victory for the Vancouver Canucks. Another point that I wanted to make, kind of my mind wanders as we host this program, but, we were talking about all the lack of shot attempts. The Canucks did hit 2 posts in the second period. Noah Juulsen walks in off the right side, kind of a path opens up to the net. Now, you're not expecting a ton of offense from Noah Juulsen, but we're showing the highlight there. Read the situation nicely, walked into the faceoff dot and got a pretty good shot away, rings it off the, I think right off the connection, sort of the pipe and the crossbar behind Grubauer. And then PDG, who made the nice play to spring Garland when it was a 2-1 hockey game, late stages of the second period, and PDG was able to ding one off the post as well. So those don't go down as shots on goal, but certainly close calls and shots at the net for the Vancouver Canucks.
Battle Mode Bainbridge says, I kind of agree with this. Giving up late goals is getting old. What say you, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've seen it far too often. Obviously, opening night against Calgary. This one, the other day against Seattle, was sort of the worst case scenario. The Kraken believe that there's still half a season to go, that they're not out of things. And so the Canucks will certainly take the 2 points, but look at some of their overtime losses here of later. To Seattle tonight. Seattle comes back and takes 2 when it looked like they were getting nothing the other day. Lost to Utah. Lost to Calgary on opening night. Like, they've given away a bunch of points to teams that won't go away, that are sort of still right there breathing down the necks of the Vancouver Canucks. And we said that, yes, Canucks climb back above the playoff bars, so good on them. There's no prize for that after 37 games, but you do want to be above the playoff bar. But, man, it is bunched up. Canucks at 44 points. Calgary has 43. The Utah Hockey Club has 40 points. St. Louis Blues have 40 points. Blues have played 39 games, but even the Blues aren't going quietly.
No.
And
turning it on a little bit after the coaching change.
The team that I look at in the chase pack there is Utah. They've got, we know the history with Arizona. They've been in the business of accumulating assets for years now. They have stockpiled so many tradable draft picks and prospects, and they've got an owner, a first-year owner, who has more money than you could imagine, and I'm sure is motivated to have playoff hockey in Salt Lake City in year number 1. And so you combine that, if they get some of their injured defensemen back, that'll be a help for them. But on top of that, if they want to go out into the market and go big game hunting, that's a team that I would keep an eye on in and around the trade deadline that has the wherewithal. Whether in Arizona they didn't want to spend, obviously, and bring in salary. I think this owner in Utah, if it would get this team above the playoff bar, I think he would hit the green light on any sort of expenditure there. So keep an eye on Utah.
I think if they're a couple points out right around the deadline, I think Ryan Smith is going to be a buyer. I really do. I think that they're going to try and figure out ways to go and make that team better. And like you just mentioned, be able to experience playoff hockey right away in Utah. Saw how successful it was for Vegas. Seattle getting its playoffs very early. How alive that building was. And just the way I think this ownership group operates in Utah, I think it'll be very interesting to see where this team is, even if they're 4 or 5 points out of it at the deadline, what they go out and do.
All right, time for our stat that stands out, and this is a good one, and I wanted to get around to it at some point on this episode, so here it is. Usually it's a Canucks stat, but how can you ignore a 4-minute and 12-second shift for Jamie Alexiak, the huge Kraken defender? We saw Carson Soucy and Noah Juulsen spin for 3.5 minutes or 3:15 the other night in Calgary, and that felt like an eternity. Jamie Alexiak absolutely gassed. Middle stages of the second period there, just spinning around and around in his own zone. It got to a point where, even if it was a 50-50 puck, like he knew that he didn't have enough gas to get there ahead of a Canuck player, and so that just furthers the cycle. And man, was he put through the ringer there. So 4 minutes and 12 seconds. And it's funny because I had somebody ask me on X, "Oh, that's got to be the longest shift of the season in the NHL." I don't have access to that information, but I do know that Roman Josi, who's coming in here on Friday with the Nashville Predators, he played the final 5-12 the other night in Minnesota.
Jeez.
32 and a half minutes on the night. And that was boosted, obviously, by a 5 minute and 12. So Alexia went for 4-12. Roman Josi played the final 5-12. I don't know how many whistles and stoppages there were. For Alexiak, this was continuous action, and that was part of the issue there. But, you don't want to get trapped. Long change in the middle period, and Jamie Alexiak survived. Didn't cost him a penalty to get scored on, but 4 minutes and 12 seconds.
That's a long, long time. And he was standing upright, just standing there, twirling, hoping to get to the bench, praying his team could clear the puck, and they weren't able to do it. A very, very long shift. Yeah, I'm trying to look it up right now. I think Austin Matthews had a 4:47 shift in 2023, but can't seem to find anything from last season or earlier this year as well.
Well, again, I'm not sure where you'd even look for shift by shift like that. I was looking at the game sheet from the other night. It's like 5-12.
Yeah.
Played up 12 and a half minutes of the third period. They lost in Minnesota, but they've been idle since, so he's had a few days to recover and catch his breath. He'll be ready to go. Plays a lot. I mean, you know that about Roman Josi, but even that is extreme. So for the Vancouver Canucks, that's the challenge. Tomorrow will be 3-4 for them. Meanwhile, a Nashville team that struggles, but is starting to show some signs of offensive life. Jonathan Marchessault heating up now. If the Canucks think it's easy, look to the and it's kind of funny the way the schedule works. This will be the second time they've seen Nashville. Both times here in Vancouver. Both times the Canucks have played the night before. So you always get quirks in the schedule throughout the season, but remember Grey Cup weekend, the Canucks played the Chicago Blackhawks on the Saturday and then had the quick turnaround. No travel, obviously, there. But here, not a ton of travel from Seattle, but still got to get on the flight and get home and then be ready to turn around and get after it against the Predators on Friday night for the one-off. And then, again, keep the suitcase handy because they're back on the flight on Saturday to start a 5-game road trip.
We have Kevin Lankinen post-game. Jacob, if we could hear that from the goaltender of the Vancouver Canucks tonight.
Obviously an unfortunate circumstance with Demco heading down the tunnel tonight, but how'd you feel just stepping in, obviously making some incredible saves in the evening?
Yeah, first of all, it was really unfortunate. I don't know what happened there. I haven't talked to him after the game, but hopefully it's nothing serious. I think he's done a tremendous job pushing himself to come back after a long break. So I hope him all the best. Gotta wish that it's nothing bad. But yeah, at the same time, it's a good challenge. That's why you prepare all day. You prepare all year, all summer, because you never know what's gonna happen, right? So I'm happy the guys helped me out a little bit too as well, and it's a huge win for the guys.
Coming off that loss just a couple days ago against Seattle, what does this win mean to you guys to be able to grab this one tonight?
Yeah, it's big. I don't know if anybody was thinking about Saturday anymore. Kind of forgot that one pretty quickly. So just the way we dug in, hang in there, find a way to win, I think that's huge.
From what you saw from the guys in front of you tonight, 9 different guys grabbing points across the board. What do you want to see carry over into tomorrow's game?
Same thing. I think guys are doing a tremendous job stepping in roles that they maybe haven't played before. We got new faces, and I think everybody's buying in, doing their best. So it's fun to watch and a good stepping stone to move forward.
How hard is it to come into a game cold like that, like you did, and you faced some really tough chances there, right in the very first couple minutes that you were in the game?
Yeah, it's a challenge, obviously, but as a goalie. It's not the first time in my career I'm in that situation, so I think experience obviously helps. But at the same time, just got to be always ready because you never know what's going to happen. Even if you're not starting, you got to do your thing, prepare, and be engaged because the team might need you. And like I said, thankfully we scored a couple goals and guys played well in front of me as well.
And what kind of goes through your mind there when they do come back and tie it up and really intense overtime period? I mean, what's going through your mind in the end of that game?
Don't think. Nothing's really going through my mind. That's the ultimate goal, being in the zone. Nothing really bugs you, nothing really bothers you. You're just focused in the present moment. So whatever happens, just happens, and you keep moving forward. So I think that's my mindset.
He is the unflappable Finn, Kevin Lankinen, and I've probably talked to him, 10 or 15 times.
It's great.
He is so casual. Nothing phases this guy, and I guess that's kind of the mindset you have to have as a goaltender. Coming off the bench, done it before, not a big deal. Overtime, whatever, it's all part of the job, and it is. And I mean, I think that mindset obviously helps him, but I just kind of laugh even when I'm there face-to-face talking to him. He's just a remarkably unflappable dude.
I also think it helps the team, too. To be able to have a guy that, he's been a backup, basically. So he's not wrong about coming into these situations cold and having to be a guy that, has to make a save, a really tough save while he's cold and things like that. But I do think it gives the team a little bit of relief knowing that they have a guy that's been through it a lot. Also, named to the Four Nations team for Finland there as well, so he's going to be there representing his country. It's some interesting comments there for Kevin Lankinen. Don't think.
He'll have to shut off that brain again. And you talk about Four Nations, Jussi Saros, former teammate, countryman, and I would assume that it's going to be Saros tomorrow for Nashville because he didn't play the other night in Minnesota. So probably see the two Finns defending the ice, maybe a preview of what's to come at the Four Nations face-off. We'll get to your line of the night coming up here in a sec, but I glossed over it early. Max Sasson scored his second goal of the season. Got a fortunate bounce off the skate boot of Danton Heinen. Höglander just kind of throws the puck, but, getting to the front of the net, staying in front of the net, and when the opportunity presents itself, score the one goal in that 5-1 loss against Boston, and he'll never forget his first NHL goal, but it came in garbage time, and even he understood sort of that you can't celebrate much. You're just getting absolutely clobbered as a team. So way cooler experience, I don't know if it's cooler experience than your first NHL goal, but to contribute in a win.
I think anytime you score in the NHL is huge, but being able to get that and contribute in a win probably means a lot more to him. They got smoked the night he scored his first NHL goal. But and I think for him, not only being able to score and contribute, but he's a guy that, has earned himself a spot on this team every single night by his play, right? He makes really good hockey IQ plays. He's responsible in his own end. He's reliable. He may not get, the big minutes or things like that like the other forwards do, but when he's out there 11 minutes, whether it's 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes, 12 minutes a night, he's making the most of those minutes and making it an easy decision for Rick Tocchet to keep playing him. And
I mentioned Höglander. I thought there were some signs. He gets the second assist there. Höglander, Heinen, DiGiuseppe, Forbert on the score sheet. To get some of those guys to step in here and contribute in the absence of Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. And look, they scored 4 against Seattle in the losing cause the other day. They get 3 here. They struggled the other night in Calgary. And it's going to be a struggle. Who knows? I mean, there's an outside chance that Elias Pettersson could be ready for this game against the Predators. I don't know. Do you have any sense whether we see PD at home on Friday night, or is it going to be another night and then sort of get the weekend off and go out on the road with the team?
I think it could be the latter.
Yeah.
I know that there was some talk that he could be ready to play at the end of the week. And then Quinn Hughes was week to week, so we'll see. Pettersson might have skated on his own here, but if he is ready to go, it'll obviously be a huge boost for the Vancouver Canucks to get, their second best or best center back in the lineup, and hopefully for him, whatever that was hurting him or he was ailing from is gone and he can come back. But I think that if I'm them, you can keep him out one more game, right? Then you get the weekend, and then you have a string of games where you're going up against some big dogs in the East, and you're gonna need all your guns.
I'm just sort of thinking here, which is sometimes dangerous on the fly, but Sasson scores. DiGiuseppe, I thought, in the role that he played, had a decent night here. Who would come out if Pettersson is good to go on Friday night? Is it as simple as one of those two guys coming off strong performances? It probably still is, but after that, you start to go a little further along and wonder. We saw Nils Höglander. He's been the healthy scratch. another night here where Dakota Joshua just doesn't give them a whole lot. I know we kind of was involved physically briefly late in the first period, again in the second, but just keep waiting for sort of some signs of progression there. I kind of feel like I repeat myself on a lot of these rink-wide episodes, but still waiting to see something there. And I don't know. Maybe they don't have to worry about that and make that decision. It may very well be the same 12 forwards against the Preds.
Before we get to the line of night, because it's more fun, Spat Zilly, another super chat. Which Canucks player are each of you most like in your own hockey playing? Jeff?
I guess I fashioned myself as a little bit of a Pius Suter. Like I was, whenever I played, and I played up through my teens, like competitively. I was a checking center. I loved, like, penalty killing was one of the favorite things that I did. When the puck was on my stick, I like to think that I could make a few things happen, but certainly not a star. So I appreciate sort of the low-key effort and performance of Pius Suter on a lot of nights, although I will say that he's gone a little quiet here as well. It's up to a dozen games now without a goal for Pius Suter, and one of the reasons the Canucks had early season success was they got contributions from a lot of guys, and Pius Suter was one of them, but he's gone a little cold, so could use him heating things back up again.
Yeah, I really don't know. There's a lot of ways I could go here.
Go Kiefer Sherwood.
Yeah, I don't like hitting people. You know what? Let's go with Max Sasson because making the most of the opportunity.
I like it.
How about that, Jeff?
I like
How about
it.
that?
No, that's a good one. That was a super chat. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we appreciate the contribution, as we tell you all the time. Going to a really good cause, the BC Mental Health Foundation. All right, it is time for the line of the night, brought to you by Bet365.
Yeah, so you know how Kevin Lankinen says sometimes, don't think? This is kind of what this line has a little bit. Is brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. Canucks Conversation, Jeff, you and I here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account, use code NATION, whatever the moment. Bet365. The Panthers, the Blackhawks, I love. Like I think they're winning that game for sure after the beatdown in the Winter Classic. The Oilers over the Ducks. The Ducks, they're gonna run out here at some point. They've beaten 3 really good teams. They're not gonna beat 4. And the Nashville Predators against the Vancouver Canucks. So parlay those 4 plus $5.99.
Wow, the Blackhawks. All right, we'll see. Can't be a whole lot worse than they were.
That's the thing.
They come back indoors. Maybe that was the problem. Outdoor hockey.
And Montreal's beaten a lot of good teams, so they're due to kind of come back to reality here.
Is that Montreal's first game back after the road trip? Their good win in Vegas the other day. So.
The other day, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see how things will be monitoring, and we will certainly check in with another line of the night after the Canucks and the Predators.
Absolutely, for the weekend.
Friday. Just quickly on the Predators, we talked a little bit about them. I mean, they're 11-20-7 on the season. And on a 3-game losing streak as they come in here, since Christmas, they lost in St. Louis. They got shut out in Winnipeg and lost 5-3 in Minnesota the other day. But don't get fooled by the result against the Wild. Nashville had 46 shots on goal. So a Canuck team that struggles to put shots on net. A tired Canucks team. This Nashville team, 46 shots the other night, and they've been off since Tuesday. Now, they're 30th in the standings. They're tied with San Jose for the fewest. Actually, San Jose won tonight. San Jose held off Tampa Bay. That's the final now, right?
Yes.
So Nashville stands alone with the fewest wins in the NHL, with 11 on the season, only 3 of them on the road, but one of those was here in Vancouver. So again, if you're thinking that it's going to be easy, nothing's easy for the Vancouver Canucks. Philip Forsberg leads the Preds. He's got 30 points. Jonathan Marchessault, remember when he couldn't score?
Yeah.
Leads the Preds with 14 goals now. And has 5 in his last 5 games.
Just took him a while.
Steven Stamkos has 11 on the season, so not a huge total, but he is into double digits. And we talked about Roman Josi, 24 points, but also minus 24.
He's on the ice all the time. That's the problem.
Well, 32 and a half minutes the other night. So there you go. Again, I would expect that it's Juuse Saros in goal because it was a rare night off. He was the backup in Minnesota the other day. All right, we'll see what Friday brings. Won't be a morning skate for the Vancouver Canucks. In fact, I would think they would tell everybody just to steer clear of the rink until closer to game time. So we may not hear from Rick Tocchet until probably a couple hours before puck drop. See if there's any information or any update on Thatcher Demco But Taka did say could be a day or two, so we're not expecting him to be in uniform when the Canucks take on the Nashville Predators on Friday night. Canucks find a way. Looked like they were going to find a way to let a lead, or the lead did get away, but the game didn't get away from the Vancouver Canucks. They defeat the Seattle Kraken by a score of 4-3. In the shootout, Max Sasson, Connor Garland, and Tyler Myers, the goal scorers. Kevin Lankinen comes on in relief, picks up the victory after Thatcher Demco left with back spasms. All right, one quick game here at home before they head back out on the road. You'll be with me again
Yes, sir.
tomorrow night, so we'll see what Friday brings. But that is going to do it for us here at Rink Wide Vancouver. So for Jacob and Atsu working hard behind the scenes, and for Irf, it was good to get you back. See, they couldn't win. You were gone there, and they kind of went in the toilet briefly.
Well, you got me for 13 games this month.
That
so.
might have had more to do with Quinn Hughes and Liz
Yeah, I
Pettersson
think
leaving
so,
the
too.
lineup, but the Canucks do get a victory here. So after back-to-back losses, on the right side of the ledger with a 4-3 shootout victory. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Make sure that you are back with us after the Canucks and Preds on Friday. But that's going to do it for this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.